So, from these legislations which specifically deals with one or other kind of offences or one or other kind of victims, we move on to the more general provision, that is Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act 2000. So, popularly it is known as JJ Act, Juvenile Justice Act. So, this Juvenile Justice Act has considered two kinds of children for the purpose of protection. One, the child in conflict with the law, wherein a child is an offender or accused of an offence. The other is a child in need of care and protection, where the child could be a victim or a child could be in distress, a child could be a part of marginalized section, or it could be anybody who is in need of care and protection. However, there is one category of child who has been excluded from the JJ Act is child as a victim during the proceedings. So, child as a victim is taken into consideration outside the proceedings, not during the proceedings. The outline of a JJ Act is the JJ Act take three things into consideration, three stages into consideration: stage of investigation, trial, and the final, the detention, if the child found to have committed the crime. And all these three stages, there are different set of authorities that have been created. At the investigation stage, the case is not conducted or held by a regular police station, but it is conducted and held by special juvenile police unit. Every police station will have this separate unit who is made in charge of holding investigation where child accused is involved. This unit is run by a personnel by name Juvenile Welfare Officer, who is also known as the Child Welfare Officer. So, this Child Welfare Officer conducts the investigation and comes up with the report to the Juvenile Justice Board. From investigation coming to the trial, generally the trial of the child is held not before any ordinary court, but it is brought before the JJ Board, Juvenile Justice Board. If the JJ Board finds the complaint is frivolous, trivial, then it can be referred to Juvenile Welfare Board, where there are Child Welfare Board which takes care of the children in need of protection and need of help. After trial, there is next stage, that is detention stage. So, if a child is found to have committed any kind of a crime, then the child initially is kept in an observation home, and then finally the child is transferred to special home. The difference between the observation and special home is like the difference between the police lockup and the jail. During the trial, the under trial are kept in a police lockup. During the investigation, the person is kept in a police lockup. Once he is convicted, he is sent to prison. Similarly, the observation home is the stage where the case is pending. After the decision, the child is transferred to special home. During all this process, we need to remember one more very important officer, that is probation officer. He is not the officer appointed under this act, but under the Probation of Offenders Act, but this officer plays a very important role that we will discuss during the other slides. So, when the investigation goes on, during the investigation and the trial, the JJ Board and the Child Welfare Officer needs to keep certain principles in mind, which is been passed by the central government in the year 2007. So, when the special juvenile police unit comes to know about the offence, the direction is given to the Child Welfare Officer to take up the investigation, and from there the matter is brought before the Juvenile Justice Board. The fundamental principles to kept in mind Some of them are overlapping with the fundamental criminal principles of criminal jurisprudence. So, therefore, I will just go through them and will make a brief discussion on them. Presumption of innocence, fundamental principle of a criminal jurisprudence. It has been adopted in JJ proceedings also. Dignity and worth. So, the child should be treated with dignity and worthy. Right to be heard, which is part of criminal proceedings. Best interest of the child. So, when the case is heard, the best interest of the child should be the paramount consideration other than other things. Next interesting principle is principle of family responsibility. The legislatures feel the best place in the world where the child could be brought up in a healthy environment is the family only and family itself. So, therefore, all sincere attempts should be made to take the child back to the family. Only when all the attempts fail, then the alternative method should be adopted. So, alternative methods are considered at the later stage, not in the beginning itself. Principle of safety, again the child needs to be protected against exploitations. Very important, the next principle is principle of non-stigmatization decisions and actions. So, the language used in the proceedings should not create stigma in the minds of the child. And then finally, right to privacy. So, coming back to the same authority which I had mentioned earlier, probation officer. This probation officer works along with child welfare officer, but the nature of the work is entirely different. Child welfare officer looks into the material fact of the incident. Say for example, child is being caught while committing theft. Child welfare officer conducts investigation on all the material facts which proves or disproves the theft. But the probation officer conducts an investigation in all connected matters. Other than the theft, all connected matters are taken into considerations, like what made him to commit theft, or what made him to fall into the trap, what made him to bring him into this situation which led to the criminal proceedings, what kind of family background the child is having, what kind of interest the child possesses. So, these are very important information which the probation officer collects, which in turn help the JJ board to come up with its award or its judgment, wherein a proper remedy could be awarded. In addition to this, providing of social investigation report, the probation officer also takes supervisory role. If a child is left on a bail, the supervision of the child, the behavioral pattern of the child is taken care of by the probation officer. When a final order is passed, the child is maybe left out on admonition or probation, the probation officer would conduct supervision over it. Post release, after release of the child, the social reintegration of the child is taken care of by the probation officer. Coming to the functions and the powers of Juvenile Justice Board. The procedure in JJ board has to be child friendly, it has to be very informal, the setup should be informal, it should be nothing like the court system, and the court premises should possess some a look which a child must feel comfortable. The ambience should be child friendly, and even the witness box should not be kept in the vicinity of the proceedings. While conducting the proceedings, the first rule which JJ board must possess is complete opportunity of hearing of the child. The child should be heard first. The duration which the JJ board has to come out with its decision is 4 months duration, and wherever not necessary, the child offender or the juvenile should not be asked to attend the court proceedings, so that the child is kept away from the intimidating proceedings that are held in the court. Further, the judges and the lawyers involved in the JJ board proceedings are prohibited from using some accusatory words, the jargons which become part of a practice like arrest, accused, imprisonment, remand, charge sheet, prosecution. So, these words should be avoided from the proceedings. So, when it comes to final orders, JJ board can pronounce a series of final orders. First, it can pass an order of transferring the child to the Child Welfare Committee or Child Welfare Board. So, this happens if the court finds that the decision is frivolous or the proceedings itself is frivolous and trivial. So, the Child Welfare Board is asked to take care of the child's reintegration into the society. Release on probation. Even if the child is found guilty, the court may release him on probation with certain conditions. Release on admonition, where the JJ board finds him guilty, but they give a stern warning and ask the child to go free. In both the cases, the probation officer would follow the child, will supervise the child's reintegration into the society. Transfer to the special home. Now, this is a situation where the child is found guilty and the JJ board decides that he should be kept in confinement. So, he would be transferred to the special home. Group counseling, if the JJ board finds that he needs a certain kind of counseling which can reform the child. Fine to the parent. This is the interesting provision where if the child is arrested while at work, means the child is put into work. So, therefore, the beneficiaries of the child work that is the parents, they are fined for putting a child to work instead of the school. So, therefore, the juvenile in conflict with law could be sent to observation home or to the special home. Observation home is during the proceedings and the special home is after the proceedings. So, from JJ board, let us take up child in need of care and protection. So, when we talk about child in need of care and protection, so the child welfare committee take care of the child in need of care and protection. So, here the care and protection include shelter, safety and rehabilitation. The child in need of care. So, this information can be brought to the notice of the Child Welfare Board by any of the following persons, from police, public servant to any public spirited citizen. So, when these persons bring it to the notice of the Child Welfare Board, the board has a power to take the child out of the possession of the natural parents and keep it with any other home till the matter is sorted out. The decisions of the Child Welfare Committee would vary from sending the child to the shelter home to sending the child to child care center, where the child is put under complete care, or child could also even given in adoption or foster care, or even it could be they could find sponsors for the child education and development. The decisions of the Juvenile Justice Board or Child Welfare Committee could go in appeal. So, there is a provision for appeal where the appeal lies with the Sessions Court, and further it could be brought before the High Court or the Supreme Court. So, this is about the child protection care under Juvenile Justice Act. The one last point which I want to mention, which I already told, that JJ Act do not protect the victims, child victims, it only deals with the child offenders. So, therefore, there is a need for new legislation on child victims. So, what we have done, the discussion in this access to justice of the children is the discussion on general laws, that is IPC, CRPC and Indian Evidence Act. Then we moved on to the specific laws, that is National Commission on Child Rights, then we moved on to Juvenile Justice Act. Thank you.